So, Dr. Abati, this morning had a clash with Rufai on Arise News. It was more like a caution, but it was a deep caution. I want you to watch this video. Yes, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it. There's a statement that Rufai made that didn't sit well with Abati, and he really cautioned him. You watch this video and I'll come back to talk about it.
I'm looking for Dr. Abati's trouble. Good morning, Ayomi. How are you this morning?
Hold on, let me have a sip before you
How nice is it? Rufai, cheers to you. Cheers. I hope we have a great morning this morning. Isn't it beautiful? But we're starting on a very
If you want to buy the match, you know where to go. We'll direct you. Arise match.
Well, all right. Well, good morning to you guys. And good morning to you viewers. Let's begin what's trending with the good news. From Niger State, as 100 students of St. Mary's Catholic School who regained their freedom from abductors on Sunday are heading home. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has commended security agencies for securing their freedom. The students were received by Governor Umar Bago at the government house in Mina on Monday after they had spent 2 weeks in captivity. President Tinubu expressed joy over their safe return, but charged security agencies to ensure the swift release of the remaining 153 students and 12 teachers still in captivity. Well, here is the movement. The students were received at the government house in Mina.
We are just excited and we're happy that we've received 100 of these children, as you saw just a minute ago, and want to thank the President, the security agencies, and every Nigerian that have been part of this recovery. And we are hopeful by the grace of God we'll get the remaining very, very soon.
We're glad to see these children have been freed. President Tinubu has also assured parents that both the federal and Niger state governments are working closely to reunite all abducted students with their families, and has charged the security forces to prevent future kidnappings and ensure schools are no longer soft targets for terrorists. Well, according to reports, the rescue followed intensified military operations, aerial surveillance across Niger, Kwara and Kebbi states, and deployment of community hunters in the forest. Yet, no arrests were made. Let's take a reaction on X. This person wrote, "How do these kids return without corresponding arrests or neutralization of the terrorists? How do you convince them to release the children without incidents? Your negotiating team must have a great power of conviction. Or are there some under-the-table transactions that the citizenry are privy to? I know that your government wouldn't pay ransom to terrorists. That would be gross irresponsibility. Of course, that's beneath you. But we, the ordinary citizens, are just curious as to how you're able to pull these negotiations through time and time again without incidents." I know that, the Christian Association of Nigeria, in a statement on Monday, said it had not received, official notification regarding the release of the 100 abducted students. The chairman of CAN Niger State chapter, Bishop Bulos Yohana, noted that while it would be cherry news to learn of the abductees' freedom, no information about their current whereabouts has been delivered to the grieving communities, raising questions about coordination between security agencies and key stakeholders in the release process. Now, we've seen this video, and the Niger State government has said that they're going to return the pupils to their family, I believe, hopefully after some sort of rehabilitation. We're glad, we're happy that our 100 young children are back home. Kudos to the security forces that helped to secure their release or freedom. But the question is still out there. Where are the terrorists who abducted these children? Where did they find them? Where are the remaining children?
Good question, Oji. And yes, like I said this morning, on the hearts of parents, well-wishers, loved ones, or anybody with a conscience or a heart, what you're looking at when you see a release like this is, thank God the children are back.
Yes.
Even though not all of them. We're told this morning 315 abducted, students and teachers, 50 escaped, 100 now rescued. So it means that 165, still more than those who were taken, are still in captivity. So first of all, let me say, thank God that they're back home. We are grateful to the security operatives and all those who were involved in their release. However, a bigger question would then be what we've been asking for, whether it be from Kebbi State or in Niger State, would be what kind of release is almost as if Nigeria is writing a new script on how rescue operations are conducted in such a way that rescue operations are conducted where there are no arrests. We don't have an opportunity to have that peace of mind that this will not occur again because the perpetrators or the people behind this have been apprehended. And it means that people will wait with bated breath as to where would be the next location based on what their agreements are. I also think there's a suspicion around this phased approach, or shall I say batch approach, to the release of these students. Why is it that only a few have been released at this time? Why were they not all released at the same time? I cannot imagine the anguish. 2 parents, by the way, have died whilst waiting for the children. And when you look at the faces of how young they are, you can understand the trauma that the parents and the children must have faced in the 2 weeks since they've been in captivity. I believe that whilst we celebrate on one hand the fact that these children are back home, which is what we have been calling for, and salute the efforts of all the security stakeholders who secured their release, the bigger question, in order for us to have that assurance that we won't see a reoccurrence or that we are proactive, is an apprehension of the terrorists who abducted them in the first place, a full going through of the justice system, facing prosecution. If found guilty, let us see the penalties for that, because this also acts as a deterrent for those who might have an idea of going into this life of criminality and terrorism, not to do with that. If you dare venture into this, you will be caught, you'll be found out, and you will face the full wrath of the law. Unfortunately, that assurance is not there. Instead, it looks as if there's some form of negotiation. It's not just about payment of ransom. It's also the fact that it seems there's a similitude of negotiations happening, and this government has continued to maintain that they will not negotiate with terrorists. It means that somebody is lying.
All right, Rufai.
Ayo, you're spot on. You asked the question, Oji, where are the terrorists? Please ask the government that knows them so well, that they romance themselves, that they call them on the phone to release people, that they can even give you blow-by-blow accounts of what is going on with the people kidnapped. But Oji, in this conversation, what we are not looking at is that things are so bad now in Nigeria that to be a child in this country is a sad, sad commentary. Do you know that it is children that are kidnapping these children? Have you seen the picture of some of the terrorists that were killed? Those that come on TikTok.
We've seen their
They are children too.
They're young boys.
So what we have in this conversation, we have not even talked about the child soldiers that have emerged in Nigeria. Nigeria has now become a den for child soldiers.
Yes. And you know, former President Olusegun Obasanjo had raised that in one of his interviews where he talked about how Gumi cried when he saw these young boys in the forest and they are drugged out. They have access to guns, they have access to drugs, and they have no future. These terrorists
so
in the forest.
It's a double whammy.
Yes.
We're saying they're kidnapping children, but it is the children, the future of this country, they're also kidnapping the children that they've misled, that they've destroyed their lives, that they have become terrorists today. In all of this, the government now said they've done a deal, they release people. What about the parents that died? So nothing will happen, right? The cycle will continue again. You will keep talking to them, they will kidnap again, you will release them. Just like we had the Kankara boys, it's not agreements.
Right.
Then we had the Dapchi, you will kidnap, they will release, and the government has not solved the problem.
All right.
Why is all of this happening? Because the government is not ready to end the pervasive level of insecurity. If the Nigerian state, like I said, is ready, then it will end. And that's why, like I said before, Oji, this talk about don't say President Tinubu should resign. When all of this was happening under Jonathan, did President Tinubu call for his resignation? He did.
All right.
If you violate a constitutional requirement, should I not call for a resignation? I should. Section 14 of Section 2 talks about the security of lives and property being in the hands of the state. If the head of state violates that by not providing security for the people, what has he done? Has he not violated the constitution? It's not grounds for him to resign.
All right. Well, meanwhile, United States Congressman Riley Moore has described the rescue of the 100 students as a positive demonstration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's response to the country's security challenges. Riley Moore made the remark in a post on X following his meeting with National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu in Abuja. He thanked the NSA for a productive meeting with the U.S. congressional delegation to Nigeria and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, stating, I'll read Riley Moore's post in part. He wrote, I want to thank the Nigerian government and President Tinubu for rescuing the 100 innocent and precious Catholic school children. This is a positive demonstration of the government's increasing response to the security situation and shows commitment to the emergency declaration laid out by President Tinubu. The U.S.'s sense of urgency on our concerns was positively received. I feel that a cooperative security framework is within sight. The now established joint task force between Nigeria and the U.S. is a great example it is clear that there is an openness and willingness on the part of the Nigerian government to work with the United States to tackle these critical issues. Now, that openness has to translate to concrete action. There is much work still to be done, but things are moving in the right direction. I look forward to the next steps with the Nigerian and the continuing open dialogue. Peace be with you all. God bless the great people of Nigeria. Dr. Abati, I wanted to read out the tweet, just so that we can have context to what he was actually saying, praising the Tinubu administration, especially for the rescue efforts with the 100 school children that were released on Sunday. Now, Riley Moore also met with Benue State religious and traditional leaders to discuss ongoing violence in the Middle Belt region. The lawmaker posted a photo of his meeting with Bishop Wilfred Anaigbe, Bishop Isaac Dugu, and James Luruza, traditional ruler of the Tiv people. Moore described the meeting as an honor, stating that Christians in the region will no longer suffer in silence and that the United States has heard their cries. Over to you.
Okay, first, I do not subscribe to the idea of anybody saying President Tinubu should resign. That's not part of the conversation. President Tinubu did not start insurgency, banditry, or terrorism. He inherited it. And if what Congressman Riley Moore is saying is anything to go by, this is a man who has come on a fact-finding mission after order back and forth between the United States and Nigeria, saying that he is convinced that the Nigerian government is committed to open dialogue and to cooperation, and that the Nigerian U.S. Joint Working Group, chaired by NSA Nuri Badu from our side, is working. And that he believes that with the kind of dialogue that he has had with the Nigerian authorities, if some of the agreements are followed, that the Tinubu administration will be able to address some of the concerns, not just about alleged Christian persecution, but also about the security of the people of Nigeria generally. So I think Congressman Moore, said, what should be enheartening for those who believe in the progress of Nigeria and for the administration that has been making every possible effort to address the concerns of the United States as articulated by President Trump on October 31. Now, Congressman Moore was one of the two persons that President Trump gave the directive to go and investigate. Now, the other person was the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in Congress. And this is in line with his work. Now, yesterday I said, well, this investigation is coming a posteriori, after the fact, that shouldn't they have done this investigation before jumping to certain conclusions about Nigeria? But better late than never. I think there is hope in the horizon. So, yeah. There is established understanding. There is, some development in the direction of the cooperation that the Nigerian government asked for.
Right.
Well, typical diplomatic approach. Congressman Moore, Ambassador Richard Mills and Balat and other members of that delegation, they also met with civil society. They were in Benue, where they met with the governor, and they met with Bishop Anagbe, Bishop Dugu, and also the Tiv, so that it's not only government side that they are listening to. However, the caveat that I added is that, okay, this is a fact-finding mission. What matters is what President Trump decides at the end of the day. When President Trump sends diplomats either to Doha, whether it's Steve Witkoff or it is his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, or it is Scott Bessent, what we always hear is that where we have to report back to President Trump. He's the one who will decide. And I hope that they will brief President Trump appropriately and make everything open, the same kind of openness that Congressman Moore is commending from the Nigerian side, that they will, and then there will be some kind of understanding, and that the cooperation that Nigeria is asking for, will be at the fulcrum of that process of collaboration and understanding.
Well said. Let's now turn our attention to reactions trailing the accusation leveled against Nigeria by the Confederation of Sahel States over the violation of Burkina Faso's airspace after a Nigerian Air Force aircraft carrying 11 people was forced to land in the country on Monday. In a video message, Mali's Minister of Security read out a statement by the Confederation of Sahel States condemning the violation of its airspace and the sovereignty of its member states. The Confederation described the incident as an unfriendly act carried out in defiance of international law and aviation rules, and threatened to place its air and anti-aircraft defenses on maximum alert with authorization to neutralize any violating aircraft, eliciting reactions. I'll take some posts on X. This person wrote, Emergency landing or not, detaining Nigerian military personnel is an unnecessary escalation. Issues like this are supposed to be resolved through swift military-to-military communication. West African countries must stop turning brothers into enemies. Today it's Nigeria, tomorrow it could be them. Diplomacy must lead, not ego. Another ex-user wrote, "We stand with our troops. Diplomatic channels must be respected, but unjust detentions aren't the way forward. Hoping for a swift, peaceful resolution and the safe return of our personnel." Now, Ayo, we know the Confederation of Sahel States is made up of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, which formally exited ECOWAS in January following military coups and suspensions from the bloc. The Confederation says the Nigerian aircraft had an in-flight emergency in Burkina Faso's airspace and had to land, but the Nigerian plane had no authorization to fly over their territory. Now, 11 Nigerians are reportedly held in Burkina Faso, yet no official comment has come from the Nigerian Air Force or the federal government as we speak. I don't know if you have seen any official statement, because that's what my producer is saying at this moment. So what's the official statement?
Okay, so the official statement is signed by Air Commodore Ehimen Ejodame, who is the Director of Public Relations and Information. He had actually clarified what you already highlighted. So that was the official statement that they said they were on their ferry mission to Portugal yesterday, 8th of December, and following takeoff from Lagos, the crew observed the technical concern which necessitated a precautionary landing in Burkina Faso, which was the nearest airfield at the time. They also made it clear that this is in accordance with standard safety procedures and international aviation protocols. They also highlighted the fact that the NAV crew is safe and have received cordial treatment from the host communities. So, I mean, what we had said earlier on is that this is a statement, official statement from the Nigerian Air Force, and then there are stories around that they are being detained. According to this statement, they are not being detained. They received cordial treatment, and it was based on an emergency landing. Some of us have been in situations where planes developed issues or passengers on the flight had issues for commercial flights. In this case, it's a military flight where you have to find the nearest strip to land. And this is what has happened. And I think for now, I'll stand with the official position of the Nigerian Air Force until proven otherwise. But this is what they have released this morning.
Okay, very well said, very well said. Well, now in Sokoto State, several reports indicate Nigerian security forces launched an operation around 9 a.m. in the Sabon Benin forest on Monday and successfully killed 7 terrorists. According to eyewitnesses, other terrorists escaped as troops moved to capture them. The troops worked in collaboration with farmers in Fadama, Tara, and local vigilantes on the successful mission. Well, in light of this, let's take a moment to highlight the Nigerian Air Force and their push in fighting back against terrorism. Dr. Abati was dancing behind the scenes, but we have to always find a way to, highlight the efforts of the military. I'm really excited about this incident that occurred in Sokoto State, which has been, a hotbed in recent time of, kidnappings and banditry. And it's good to see that, our Nigerian military are doing what they're doing. They're even working with farmers and vigilante groups to secure the territory. Dr. Abati, quick word before I go to Anambra State.
Well, I mean, just to commend the Air Force, anytime that they do well, also the armed forces, generally, not just the Air Force. But I keep making the point that, they have a tough task and they are overstretched. The Nigerian armed forces, they are overworked. Now, the president has directed that they should recruit more persons. And then also, there's also the directive that anybody that is due for retirement should not go on retirement, should just stay and, take on this task. But, we need more boots on the ground. We need more collaboration, interagency collaboration, which was why the new Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, was making that point about collaboration among the various agencies. And that's very important because, we can't be using soldiers to do police work most of the time. So the attempt to upgrade the security agencies is very important. So when they do well, we praise them, but we should also not overstretch them. We should also pay attention to their welfare. 100 billion naira has been recommended, approved by the National Economic Council. That 100 billion naira should be well managed so that there will be motivation. Ayo calls it the mindset, so that the mindset, can be strong for them to continue to serve. And training for facilities and equipment should be made available.
Yes.
That is what is important.
Correct. And a quick comment in Burkina Faso, the story.
Okay, the situation in Burkina Faso, the press statement that Ayo read, that's exactly what the Nigerian government has said. It was just a safety procedure. They were on their way to Portugal. But at the same time, it's good to hear that the authorities in Burkina Faso, they've been they've been very nice to our men. The thing is, okay, the Alliance of Sahel States, they have exited ECOWAS in January, but you still have to continue to engage them.
Yes.
5 out of the members of ECOWAS have military rulers, but they are still within this space. And ECOWAS made some concessions about trade, about tariffs, but we hope that someday, it will be one happy community once again, as envisioned by the founding fathers of ECOWAS in 1975.
Well said, Dr. Abati, well said.
So, regarding this issue of the children that were kidnapped in Niger State, 50 first escaped, then they released 100. So, Rufai, I think Rufai is right in what he's asking. Now, let's look at this critically. Now, let's imagine where 300 children, like 300 children will be. It cannot be hidden. Do you know what it means for like 300 children to be somewhere? To be like in a place. Everywhere will be filled up. So it's not like a place that will be hidden. And now, out of that 300, or maybe less than that, 100 was actually, they counted 100 and released that 100. Now, the path or whatever the 100 was coming out from, supposed to have shown where those people are, which means they know where they are. That is the point. Whoever that is in charge knows where those children are. Because for 100 to walk out of the bush or wherever it is, definitely they know where they are. So now, Rufai is saying, no arrest was made. No nothing. Like the 100 just walked out in Jesse. Probably they gave them Jesse after they came out. And it doesn't really make sense. But I'm not like supporting Rufai on the resignation that Tinubu should resign. I'm not supporting him. You understand? But I think it's a spur of the moment, and he felt probably emotional. It was emotion that pushed that. You understand? But it still should not be far from what's happening, because somebody has to take responsibility for all this and put everything in order. Why was there no arrest made in this particular issue? If 300 people or 300 people are in the bush, and out of that 300, 100 is coming out. Okay, 50 escaped before, so let's say about 250, 100 is coming out, remaining like 150. They should be able to say, okay, this 100 came out from this bush. There's no way 100 children, they will cover their eyes. 100, if they are too much to cover their faces, not to know where they are coming from. So, meaning that there is something that is not adding up. And this is what Rufai was asking. And Abati questioned him. But what is your thought about this? Do you think the government, they intentionally did this? Are like they don't want, I don't know how to put it. These are, they don't want to have like a clash with the people that are doing this, or it's for political gains. I don't know. But what's your thought on this? I wanted to put that on the comment section. I'll see you.